Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Am I here? Oh. Now we're ready. Welcome to the City Council meeting. It is February 5th, 2018. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Scott? Here. Drew? Here. Nordstrom? Here. Modrick? Here. Solomon? Here. Lewis? Here. Armstrong? Here. Laurenti? Here. Drury? Here. Roberts? Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now for the invocation tonight, we'll have Brad Clausen. And following the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Do you want me to just pray like, there we go, okay. If you would indulge me for a minute. This weekend, two friends of mine were found under a bridge, frozen to death. They attended my Bible study, Ernie and Connie Evans, and they attended my Bible study on 5th Street at the Hardys pretty regularly, and I would just like to take 10 seconds to remember them. Father, I come before you in the name of Jesus, and I want to ask your presence here tonight. I pray that you would be with these council members as they wrestle with the difficulties of running a city of this size and with the complexity of issues that they face on a daily basis. And I would ask that you would grace them with wisdom and understanding, with compassion, with a hunger and a thirst for justice, with a hunger and a thirst for truth, and a desire to see the best for everybody involved in this community. I pray your protection over them. I pray your protection over their family. I pray you continue to lead and guide them throughout this week and throughout this month and throughout this year as we wrestle with making Rapid City a good place to live and a safe place to live and a place that honors each individual no matter what their station is in life. And we thank you, Father, for your grace, your mercy, and your truth. In Christ's name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Now to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the council can adopt the agenda as written or can make modifications to it. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
Okay, a motion to approve by Solomon and a second by Drew. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tonight we have a presentation from our budget analyst, Sean Kurbanov, and it is on the citizen survey, the budget survey.
Good evening, honorable council members and members of the public. I would like to present the findings of the. Do we have it on? Am I on? Good evening. Oh, Here we go. Good evening again. I would like to present the findings of Rapid City's first citizen priority survey. Back in November, we rolled out a survey. It was a 14-question survey that was intended to gather public's preferences, and those preferences would guide the 2019 budget and would be part of the priority-based budgeting system that we are implementing. So we are obviously having difficulties. And it's blank. If you give me a minute. Doing something.
Worked fine when we tried it before, didn't it? I'm sorry.
Save it. And open it again. Still have a flash drive.
Still on the flash drive, right? That's right.
Here we go. Thanks. I apologize for the technical issues we are having. So the goals of the survey was to get the citizens' preferences. And this is another data point that this council and city administration can use in making decisions. I will go right to the meat of the presentation since we lost some time here. But I would like to say that the underlying reason for this survey was the fact that we have an expanding city with increasing demand for public services. But at the same time, our major revenue sources fluctuate from year to year. So if you and this was brought up during the budget presentation last summer. As you can see, this is our sales taxes, and this is the growth rates in sales taxes, and they fluctuate considerably from year to year. So the premise was for us to find out what citizens prefer the city does if we have a shortfall in revenues. We had 1,665 valid responses. Just to let you know how good of or solid of a number it is, it gives us if we assume that this sample is fully randomized, it gives us a 2.3% confidence margin of error at 95% confidence level. Which basically means that you can be 95% sure that the averages that we got as a result of this survey are within 2.3% of the population mean. Now, and another reference, our neighbors to the east, Sioux Falls, had their survey last summer or last spring, and it was done by one of the leading national research center, and they only got about 800 responses. So we did pretty well with the response rate. As I mentioned, I will go over to the results that revolve around the budgeting issues, but to let you know, we actually got a pretty good response from all demographic groups within the city. All age groups, all income levels, all education levels. So it's a pretty representative sample. Now, the sample, the survey was administered using two methods. One was online, and one was through a mail-out survey, and we had about 3,000. We had exactly 3,000 mail-out surveys going to all 5 wards equally, and we got almost a 20% response rate on the mail-out survey. One caveat here is that the survey itself on the cover sheet referred people back to the online survey, so we can't really gauge the true response rate for the mail-in survey. And since the mail-in survey was, I would arguably more randomized in the sense that there was arguably less self-selection, I will be presenting the results for both the online version and paper version separately. So I'll skip over the demographics. Now, question 1 asked people to rank the city core values. And those core values are at the heart of priority-based budgeting. All city programs are ranked and prioritized based on how closely they or how much they contribute to achieving those goals or contributing to those values. And as you can see, respondents rated safe, healthy, and skilled community as their highest priority, and so on. This is probably the question that will have the most immediate and long-lasting impact, because this will be at the core of priority-based budgeting now, and all programs will reflect citizens' preferences. We also asked the question of what people would like the city to do if there is a shortfall that we discussed earlier. And the majority of people, almost 62%, are in favor of increasing user fees. 20% are in favor of increasing taxes, and only 18% would like the city to cut back on certain services. Now, there was also a question asking people to allocate 1,000 of their tax dollars. And as you can see, there will be a lot of cross-validation going on among these questions. And for this question, most people allocated they allocated most of their tax dollars to police services, street repair and maintenance, and fire services. Now, one way to interpret these results is you can reasonably assume that most people don't know what the actual distribution of the budget is. So if you have a distribution that is less than the average $71 per service, then that may be taken as an indication that people want less of their tax dollars to go to that service. If it's more of their tax dollars to go into that service. Now, it doesn't mean that they people want to necessarily see less of that service. It's just the allocation of the tax dollars. And here we have, going further, we actually have responses to the question that separate each of the services and ask what you would like the city to do if there is a shortfall. And as you can see, for those services that were the top 3 services with the greatest allocation, people want the city to increase taxes. Whereas for services like public libraries, recreation, and the services in the second column, they want more user fees implemented, that's to be expected because those services affect only a smaller proportion of the population, and people would like to see more benefits-based payment for those services. And we also had an open-ended question, which asked respondents or residents what they consider to be the most pressing issues that need to be solved in order to improve livability in the city. And there is a wealth of data, wealth of responses. We have more than 1,300 responses that you can go over. But these are the issues that were raised most often. Again, housing, income, economy, police, safety issues, infrastructure. There was a good amount of people mentioning arts, culture, and so on. And I invite you to actually go over the full report, to go through these comments and just to get a feel of what people think are the most important issues in the community. Now, as it turns out, most Rapid Cityans are happy about living in Rapid City, and as you can see, about almost 80% rate Rapid City as a good place to live, or either good or excellent place to live. Now, for the full report, it's available on the city's website under Mayor and City Council, and there is a tab on the bottom that reads Budget, and you can find the full report there. Thank you very much for your attention, and big thanks to everybody who participated in this survey process.
Thank you,
And
Sean.
I open to questions.
Any questions from the council? Okay, motion to acknowledge from Lewis and a second by Solomon. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no speakers for the general public comment, so we'll move on to non-public hearing items, items 2 through 77. We'll open public comment on items 2 through 68. And our first speaker on item 35 is Dane Boomsma. And Dane and everyone else, there's a handful of speaker requests. 3 minutes on the podium tonight, and the lights over here tell you how you're doing on time.
Red means keep going,
Right.
just to be clear. I'm Dane Boomsma, speaking on item 35. Probably not speaking directly to 35 as I have no financial interest in this particular exception request. More importantly, I have an interest in the direction of the city and what we're using for construction materials and what makes sense and what we're not doing that our surrounding communities are doing. On item 35, we're talking about water service lines, and those of you that were at the Public Works Committee know that we had a really good debate and discussion at that meeting. We want to continue those discussions. This isn't the platform tonight because we're not voting on what we really need to do, and that's change the design criteria manual. Mr. Tech has agreed to start looking into that and discuss that further, from my understanding. One thing on this particular item I do want to point out is the City Engineering Department is granting exceptions to the design criteria manual from the curb stop or curb valve to the house. At the Public Works Committee, I had an application in process. Since then, I've received those exceptions for 7 lots in Rapid City, which is a positive move in the right direction from the industry standpoint. Now, what I want to point out today, this exception that Travis was requesting is from the curb stop to the main. So my question for the City Council and the engineering staff is, from the main water line to the curb valve, you can't have anything but copper. And then from the curb valve to the house, we have poly. Both lines can't work without the other one. We need both lines to be fully functioning. So if we're given the exceptions from the curb stop to the house, I believe the exception should be granted from the main to the curb stop as well. Cost was definitely a negative according to the city staff. Cost is positive for us. At the end of the project, the developer pays for all the pipe that goes into the ground, which affects his lot prices in the end. And when that material is in the ground, there's a 2-year warranty that the contractor warrants that pipe. After that, the homeowner is responsible from his house to the water main. So we have no cost or risk to the city utility maintenance or engineering whatsoever. That the fact that we're denying this exception but granting the exceptions from the curb stop on, I don't think it goes line in line. Bottom line is we need to address the design criteria manual, which that was the importance that came out of the Public Works Committee. I still think that we should grant this exception based on the fact that we are granting the exceptions to the service line anyways, and the city at no point in time, no matter what the material is, takes any responsibility for it. So, thank you for your time.
Okay, next speaker on item 55, Michael Whalen.
Good evening. My name is Mike Whalen, and I'm an attorney here in town. And I represent Red Rock Meadows HOA. They would be neighbors to the subject property. About a week ago, I came before the Legal and Finance Committee to voice concerns and ask questions about the proposed agreement. At that time, I represented to the committee that the 2015 legislative audit showed approximately $250,000 as due and owing from the developer. I also stated that the new agreement failed to show the current amount or the payments that would be due in the future, and that the letter of credit securing the developer original debt may have been released, and that there was a promissory note not attached. That is, at the time I believe that it was missing from the attached documents. Today, due to the research finance office and the city attorney, we know that there is $234,000 owing under the original loan. There is apparently a missing $90,000 promissory note, and there's reason to believe that the note was never drafted or signed. The letter of credit appears to have lapsed in 2010. I asked the finance officer to please attach it, and I arrived a little bit late, so I'm not able to make sure that you have that in your documents. But that letter of credit appears to have lapsed in 2010, and the debt is in fact unsecured because the city failed to renew and update the letter of credit annually. The assignment, I submit to you, is in fact a novation under the law and constitutes a new agreement discharging the original obligation. And finally, that 11 lots that are identified in the proposed agreement, take that times $10,000, each covers less than 1/2 of the debt due. Despite this, from these facts and the information that have been provided, I urge you to ratify the new agreement because, to some degree, this is a salvage operation. Thank you. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you. Now on to item number 56. First speaker is Tina Mullally.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I greatly appreciate your time and effort and everything that you do for us. But on this particular issue, I'm a little concerned that you might be putting the cart before the horse. I understand that there is a special election on the 20th of this month in regards to certain things that will be happening. And if there is an approval on 56, the problem I see with it is that you're spending taxpayer money that's not necessarily needing to be spent. Why have two resolutions done on this for these bonds. And I would like to remind all of the City Council of the special election that was held on Tuesday, the 10th day of March, 2015. It was a resolution authorizing the issuance of sales tax obligations for the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center in an amount not to exceed $180 million in construction costs, and further authorizing certain officers of the city to approve, execute, and deliver agreements and documents relating to these obligations. May I remind you that the citizens of this city voted not to expand the Civic Center, and that should be taken into consideration, that they don't want it expanded. And I'll leave this for another time. But at this time, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for giving me a few quick seconds here to speak my mind on this issue. As Tina Malale and the person speaking before me said, 61% voted no. But more importantly, in the past couple of years, there's been some enlightening things that have come forward dealing with the city. And I would bring them to your attention again here today, because I agree you're putting the cart before the horse, but more importantly, I would argue that you're not prioritizing the things that matter most in a city. When you have a $25 million shortfall in street and bridge funding, that needs to be addressed, because you can't do business without roads. When you're leaking 300 gallons per minute on a land site, and I'm quoting the March 28, 2017 KOTA interview where we leaked millions of gallons of water and then turn right back around and propose a water rate hike, frankly, I think you've got other problems to address besides entertainment. And again, I would also bring to your attention that in specifically Rapid City, we've been ranked as the 6th poorest city in South Dakota. Roughly speaking, there's about 23.8% of our population that are at or below the poverty level. I've heard this very council talk about affordable housing, and now you're trying to hire a consultant to do work to propose a $110 million COP, along with $25 million in sales tax revenue bonds. Ironically, the exact same amount that you have in an infrastructure deficit. I would ask that you actually do your due diligence and actually take care of the things that matter most. The roads that we drive on, the water that we drink. Let's not make this another Flint, Michigan. Let's make this a city we can be proud of. And again, as somebody that personally works and lives as a consultant, you don't hire a consultant unless you know you're going to do the work. And so if this is some sort of veiled attempt to indicate to the citizens that you're not interested in what we have to say, I would tell you that you ought to take the time to talk to your constituents before you make a move like that. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next, Jody Fry Byington.
Good evening. I would like to echo Jordan's thoughts and Tina's thoughts. I was part of the group that went out and got thousands of signatures, and we could have gotten thousands more the last time the Civic Center expansion and remodel came up, and the citizens resoundingly said no. 60 to 30%. We said no. And the thought, it angers me, it shocks me, and it totally angers me that no one up there is listening to what we're saying. We don't have the money to proceed with this, and there's no point in wasting $15,000 hiring a consultant when the citizens of Rapid City have clearly said no. We do not need to spend this kind of money on a remodel, and I would be more than happy to sit on the Civic Center board, but no one has asked. I'm pro building, but I'm not pro wasting. And I think that there's a lot of things with the Civic Center that can be fixed at a minimal price and not at this huge remodeling price. We can meet the needs of handicapped people, and we can meet the needs of our citizens without spending this huge price tag. So I would seriously, strongly ask you to reconsider slipping this in under the radar. Thank God Jordan Mason called us and said, did you see what's in item 56? This is wrong. And our group has worked very hard to bring things to the voters, and we ask that you listen to the voters. If not, we'll have to go shopping for new city councilmen. Thank you.
Next is Mary, I hope I have this right, Mary Piper.
I'm so short, y'all can't even see me. Oh. Well, they might be able to hear me, but they can't see me, so I guess it's okay. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. I've been in Rapid City since 1954, and I've seen Rapid City grow. Needless to say, it has grown. Not always like I would like to have seen it grow, but it's growing. And of course, I like living in Rapid City. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. But because I was in the Air Force, I got orders to be at Ellsworth in 1954. So we liked Rapid City and we stayed. At the same time, you know, somehow or other, things are getting a little out of hand, it seems like. And like Jody said, and like many others believe, we really don't have the money to spend right now. We really should be more frugal and look at everything closer, you know, to see where does the money really go and where does it come from. It comes from the hardworking people that live in Rapid City. And so therefore, just like President Trump, you know, he says the people are the ones that should be able to let us run the country. So therefore, I think that you need to take a look at how you're spending your money. I'm all for improvement. I'm all for having things better. However, at the same time, you know, in my own household, if I don't have the money, I don't spend that. And I'm really glad that my parents taught me that. So at the same time, Mayor, the rest of the City Council, and the population of Rapid City, take a good look and see how our money is spent and what we should do about it. So thank you very much for your attention. And like I said, it's my first experience in here. I hate all this little stuff. I mean, the monitors and all this. Of course, I didn't grow up with all that. I grew up with a pencil and a piece of paper, and that's it. You know, but now I gotta sort of get used to it, but I don't like it. Nevertheless, I don't even have a cell phone because I can't stand them. So, and besides, they cost bad manners. You know, you go to a restaurant and everybody's talking to their little phone, and I think, God, what happened? What happened to everybody? I'd rather talk to you and laugh than sit there and look at that stupid little thing. But that's advancing society, and it has caused a lot of problems. But so be it. The issue at hand is, what's that light for? For me to stop talking?
That means you're almost done.
Oh, well, I guess I'm done. But thank you for your attention, and I hope you listen to us this time. We really don't need to spend any more money on things we really don't need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, Mike Mueller, item 56.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, general public. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. South Dakota Citizens for Liberty is a grassroots advocacy and watchdog group that protects our citizens and promotes limited government, protects our Constitution, which the First Amendment, which we're approaching tonight, and hold elected officials accountable. Our group has saved probably the taxpayers in Rapid City and Pennington County nearly $500,000, or $500 million, excuse me, with the 3 referrals that we've brought to the citizens. When this body, a few years ago, voted in the Civic Center expansion, we brought it to the citizens, they said no. School opt-out, did not take it to the citizens until it was referred. Citizens said no. The wheel tax was referred, and the citizens said no. We now have the water tax hike in front of us, which we're hopeful that that campaign is successful also, and let the citizens have their voice. So I would suggest that you're very careful. Doherty and companies, well into financing, you'll spend $15,000 right out of the gate, and if $110 million is bonded, it's another $55,000 to the taxpayers. I know they're very proficient at what they do, but I would hesitate, even though the $25,000 that was spent a few years ago was not utilized because this measure failed. But I think if you proceed tonight, you're putting a thumb in the eye of the citizens one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. And on item 77, Jackie Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just here on behalf of the Human Relations Commission as their chair, and I'm available for any questions about the written report that you all received.
Thank you. And that'll put a close to the public comment on these items, and now consent items, items 2 through 68. Would the council like to remove any of these items? We'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 35 and 56.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Items number 46, 49, 50, and 51, please.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, items number 34 and number 40, please.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 65, please.
Just one? 65?
Yes.
Chad Lewis.
Item 55.
Item 55, please.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more lights, would the council then like to offer a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 35, 56, 46, 49, 50, 51, 34, 40, 65, and 55? Motion by Laurenti, second by Drury. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 34 is to acknowledge the report on importance of standardized materials for residential water service lines within the public right-of-way, and we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge the report, if I can get a second.
Second by Richie Nordstrom.
And what I want to do is just kind of summarize our conversation and thank the developers and builders who came to our Public Works meeting, and thanks also to the staff who prepared the report. It is important for us to be cautious of making exceptions until we have all the data, which is true, but it's also important for us to look at any progressions in the industry to make sure that we're staying true to the time. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that our Public Works Director will take the lead on forming some kind of task force to study the design criteria manual and bring in industry experts to make sure that we approach this carefully and look at any potential for progress, or if we need to stay the same, whatever the case may be. But I look forward to that data, and you know, I guess that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion on 34? Oh, you motion to acknowledge. Okay, and we got a second from Richie Nordstrom, right? Okay, I was here. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 35, which is to deny the appeal of exception request from Renner and Associates to waive the requirements of standard specifications, section 8.2A4, and allow the use of HDPE pipe in lieu of copper for residential water service within the street right-of-way. We'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this off. One of the things that I thought was interesting when we were discussing this the other day is, you know, there was a lot of discussion about how this isn't a proven product. Well, that's not true. It's been out in the market for a decade or more. It's been used all over the country. And, you know, unfortunately, Rapid City, we're always kind of the last ones to do anything, it seems like. And even in South Dakota, because there's quite a few communities around us that are using it now. And I would like to see this denial changed. I would love to see us start a project somewhere in Rapid City so at least we can have a pilot project on it. You know, because if we sit on this dais and we say, well, we're going to check into this, we're going to look at this, it could be years from now. This could be years of us having it in the ground trying to prove this. We've got to get it in the ground to be able to prove it. And you know, one of the things that Dane said that's true. There's no risk to the city because, you know, the homeowner is responsible for that infrastructure all the way to the main line. We're not changing the main line out. We're not going from copper, which is a responsibility of the city. We're not changing that out. We're just changing out the service lines. So if one of my colleagues would like to make a motion, I would definitely second it, that we would grant this appeal. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Well, it would be my opinion that I would lean towards, is this on? Okay. The supporting the change in the actual, what do they call it? Excuse me, my mind went blank. Design criteria, excuse me. Yes, I think that I could support that. However, I've talked to a lot of people, and I have two personal stories to share about the old, I think it's poly B pipe that people use, the old plastic pipe that came out and was used in a lot of homes in the 70s. And I was talking to my husband about this particular problem. He goes, oh, no, you don't want to go to the plastic pipe. He goes, don't you remember, about 1995, Drew came running into the house and said, Mom, there's a waterfall in our backyard. And it was a broken pipe, okay? And then we had a similar thing happen in a rental house we have on Red Dale Drive where the pipe broke this summer, and after $4,000 we got it fixed. However, that is old, and I can see why the people made these decisions against this material. It wasn't good. It didn't hold up. It didn't work. But now times have changed, and I think that we have to at least owe it to the builders and the people of Rapid City to look at this new product. I mean, that was stuff that was used 40 years ago, and I think we've got to give it a chance. We've got to really look at this, so I'd be in favor of some kind of a task force or somebody to really look into this problem so that we can make a good decision for the next 40 years. Thank you.
I think Joel Landine, our city attorney's got something to bring up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify something that was said. What the South Dakota Supreme Court actually said that we are responsible for the service line from the main to the curb stop, and that the homeowner, while they didn't actually address it, but they did not overturn that the homeowner was responsible from the curb stop to the home. So I think that was, as referenced by the speaker, the reason that staff was willing to say we'll support or has been granting exceptions from the curb stop to the home, because that is at this point the homeowner's responsibility. But since from the main to the curb stop, according to the Supreme Court, is now our responsibility, they were not ready to approve that at this point. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
Thank you. Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's what I was thinking, my thinking as well. I do believe that was always from the curb stop to the main line was always the city's responsibility. But either way, I would also venture to make a motion. Want to make a motion? It's too late. Can I make a motion to approve the appeal? Second. Thank you. And you retain the floor. Anyway, the point being was I've actually experienced using the copper tubing pipe. Thank you. from on a townhouse I built for myself, and unbeknownst to me, the soil was actually conducting, and it caused corrosion, and next thing you know, I had a leak underneath my concrete floor. I had to chop it all out and replace the soil and the tubing as well. So I can see where the use of something that doesn't conduct electricity would be nice, and I'm more than willing to accept, to start using this product if possible. I think it's a good idea because it was not a pleasant experience. I can tell you, jackhammering that out of there all the way back to the curb stop, and it was just generally a pain and a lot of money. We did it ourselves, but it saved some money. But if the homeowner has to do it, that's going to cost them a lot more money. I personally don't see the risk as much as maybe I understand the staff's looking out for the best interest of the city, but having experienced it and seen exactly what happens when you get the wrong kind of soil mixed with copper, I would like to see this go forward. Thank you.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion to uphold staff's recommendation to deny the appeal, if I can get a second.
Second by Laurenti. Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, there was a great discussion, as the speaker did say, at Public Works, and you know, the city of Rapid City may in some things lag behind a little bit, but we've also heard some stories of when we have tried new materials. I will tell you, I heard one thing at the Public Works Committee, and I heard a commitment from Dale Tech that he would start looking at this, and I also heard the suggestion of possibly looking at a pilot program or something to try it out, because it is going to be a long term before we can really see the effects of this. So I cannot support, just in my opinion tonight, willy-nilly approving something. I would rather see some really thought out plans for a trial or for a what was the word I just used, a pilot program, and have that come back so that it's well thought out, so that we know what benchmarks and what testing we're going to be looking for. So I will uphold staff's denial of the appeal on this item. Thank you.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to chime in because I seconded that, bringing it back to the original motion, primarily because, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not a subject matter expert in this particular field, and I trust the experts, the engineers who are going to take a look at this. However, if there are proponents on this council, and I understand that, and I would be myself if I were well informed by the subject matter experts on this particular item, but they're not ready for that. They're not ready to tell us that this is the best way to go, that this makes sense from a material standpoint. I'm sure there are communities and there are studies out there on this material, so I think we need to let our public works, our engineers, look at the information and come back with a recommendation. I think the proponents here on the council and the dais, if they want to have it come back as quickly as possible, I think they should see Public Works and talk to them about when we can, how quickly we can get this information back so that we can possibly pilot or begin to use it depending on their recommendation. I yield.
Okay, motion on the floor is to uphold the denial.
Denial.
To uphold the denial of this item. Okay, let's go to a roll call vote on that. Heidi?
Scott. Drew. Nordstrom. Modrick. Solomon. Lewis. Armstrong. Laurenti. Drury. Roberts. Motion passes 8-2.
Okay, thank you. Now, item 40. Approve special event application for the annual RCPD Cruiser Car Show. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to make a motion to approve. If I get a second and retain the floor.
Second by Lisa Modrick. Go ahead.
Can I direct questions to Chief Jegris?
Please do.
Chief, can you give us a couple of updates on this? I know we have a date change and perhaps how the downtown business owners are receiving
Yes.
this event.
Thank you. So first off, from the time that this was on the legal finance agenda last week to today, we made a slight adjustment to the application and changed the date to Saturday, July 14th. And this is also significant because we are changing our annual cruiser car show from a Sunday daytime to a Saturday afternoon and evening. So it'll start at 4 p.m., go till 9 p.m. That'll require a street closure at 2 p.m. and monitoring of parking prior to that on a Saturday. So Mr. Sefner is here from Destination Rapid City to express support from the Downtown Business Owners Group. And so we're prepared to support this event and look forward to it on a Saturday and believe that it'll be even more well attended than ever before. That's our hope.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sefner?
Thank you, Jason.
So this is quite the change going from Sunday to Saturday, but I would think the increased foot traffic could be increase in potential business for downtown business owners. Is that what you're hearing?
Totally positive. We estimate somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 people come to this event on a Sunday afternoon. Imagine doing it on a Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, the coffee shops, you know, the restaurants, and all the traffic that we get. Unfortunately, still today, there's still a lot of places closed on Sunday afternoon, or Saturday afternoon they'll be open. I can't see any reason why people wouldn't invite this. I've talked to several people on the street, several property owners. It's an exciting thing. Yes, there's always some negative when you close a street. There's no question about that. But the majority, and I mean the real majority, support this very strongly. We expect terrific results. Be a lovely evening, wonderful afternoon. We'll have music at Main Street Square. We'll have things going on. We'll have different events throughout the early evening and late afternoon. So it's something we just strongly support, and I see it doing nothing but a positive thing for downtown and our community.
Yeah, the car show is a lot of fun. I love cars as well. You know, I think it's a big difference to have folks actually stopping downtown and walking and coming into shops versus just driving straight through. And I think that's a huge benefit for our downtown businesses.
Yeah, last year we counted 260 cars, or 263, for the event, and it was hot. And we had a lot of people, and it was a very hot day. There were people struggling from the heat. So this will also ease that tension for the public when you look at mid-July. So our evenings are obviously, we know, very beautiful in Rapid City, and it'd be a wonderful thing for downtown. So we strongly support it.
We have quite a few visitors from out of the area that attend this, too,
Yes.
that participate as well.
Yeah, and I think if you take a look at that, the hoteliers are going to bless this without a question, because instead of people coming in on Sunday and have to get back right away, they'll come in on Friday and stay through Sunday. So you'll have that tourism call that we didn't get before. We'll have the extra people spending a night. Obviously, a little economic booster there also. So I think it's a very positive issue for our community.
Yeah. Like a lot of things, it's about, obviously, we can enjoy it as citizens, but it's about us welcoming guests into our community,
Correct.
helping us pay those sales taxes, and keeping this a great place to live. So thank you all for your work on this. I yield the floor.
Darla Drew.
I have a couple questions, Dan, if you would mind. So just remind me, how much area are we looking at closing off here?
We'll do Main Street, and we'll do 6th, which we do quite a bit. So we'll go to 8th Street. In the years past, we've used the Assurant parking lot, and we'll close off part of that 7th Street area also. So St. Joe corridor will remain open, but you'll be looking at the corridors that we've closed every year for years. This is the 7th year that we've worked with PD in doing it and bringing the success to a higher level, we'd hope. And so those will be the ones that we'll be working with. And we'll be contacting all the businesses and so forth and so on. But once again, Darla, I see nothing just to be like, you know, I was in retail almost 30 years. Bring me people in front of my door. What a wonderful thing.
30 years, really?
Yeah, believe that or not.
But I'd like to know, so what time of the morning do you think that will close?
We'll probably start closing the street around noon.
Around noon,
That's what we
okay.
are estimating right now, so we can get everything going by 4. So the cars will start coming in, but we'll close the street around noon. And then because it'll take 3 to 4 hours till we get everybody parked, everybody situated, everything done, to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll be closing it around noon on a Saturday afternoon.
Well, I know I'm going to hear from some businesses that, you know, there's always those naysayers out there. I think it's a very positive thing as well, but I like to be informed, and so I know what I'm looking at. So
Yeah,
thank you
and
very
we
much.
do too. That's why we needed to bring it forward, because it is a change, and I believe it's a very strong change and a very positive change for downtown and what we're doing.
Well, personally, I've seen some awesome car shows, so I expect this one to grow as well, and thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
Okay, motion on the floor is for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 46, acknowledge December 2017 General Fund Cash Balance Report. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask the Chief Financial Officer a couple questions, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Pauline, in looking at this, this looks like it's the end of the year general fund balance, and there's a note at the bottom of it that is asterisk, and it says that at the end of the year, each year, it reverts down to zero. That is referring to the designated portion of any funds that would show up in that column. Is that correct?
That is correct, because at the year end, all of our ordinances and supplemental ordinances for the appropriations are no longer in play.
Okay. So in reading this for the December 31st of 2017, we did have a decrease in our remaining total cash from the previous year of about $2.4 million. The budget, I believe, for 2017 had been balanced with trying to offset operating expenses with $3.5 million. So with looking at this, it looks like the department directors did do pretty good because they didn't spend a full $3.5 million, at least according to this report. Here's my question. Once we have our cash balance that's already down $2.4 million and the reserves are taken out of that, it leaves us with an undesignated cash amount on this report of $570,000. Is this accurate at this point? Is there anything else that has to come out of this money, like a carryover for expenses from 2017 to 2018, or anything else that's going to become designated out of this amount? Or is the city, can we say the city is good $570,000 as of December 31st, 2017?
So there are two things that will come forward in 2018. One is on the agenda for tonight, was an encumbrance ordinance for those purchases in progress that hadn't made its way through the whole system. We hadn't paid the bills. So there will be cash coming out for those. That is on tonight's agenda. We also end up doing a supplemental appropriation for carryovers as well, and those have yet to come. It's one of those that carryovers are not guaranteed, and so if the funding is not there, the council has full authority to say no. Something else to keep in mind is come January 1, the new designated reserve also changes with the new 2018 budget. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it's 15% of the general fund expenses less the capital outlay expenditures. So I don't have that off the top of my head. So you'll see that new number with the January 31st report that will be coming.
But that will be higher than the current reserves as stated in 2017 because the 2018 budget is greater than it was in 2017.
More than likely, that is correct. It all depends on those capital outlay expenditures. In addition, the council approved the 2018 budget, balancing it with using about $1.3 million in undesignated cash to do so.
Okay, so it looks to me, and you know I've never professed to be a great mathematician, but it looks to me like we're in trouble with our cash in thinking that we still may have departments bringing forward that extra $1 million that hasn't been spent yet. We'll have to look to see what the carryover is. So I would caution my peers up here, you better start looking to potentially really consider if we need to fund any of those things. We might even want to ask the mayor to start looking to see what cutbacks we can do. I'm not really looking for a huge influx of cash to make up the $1.3 million plus the $1 million that may be coming forward in carryover. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Something else to keep in mind on the positive side is that this also does not include any sales tax received in January or February that would have been for 2017, which would offset those expenditures that are also carrying over. So there is some revenue to offset that, but we haven't received our final payment yet for the 2017 year, so there is some offset there.
Okay, motion to acknowledge by Drew, second by Nordstrom. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now to item 49, approve resolution number 2018-006, a resolution establishing 2018 encumbrances. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I had also pulled this one because it basically was answering my question of was there anything else coming out. So as we had just stated, there's $570,000 currently in our checkbook that's undesignated, but now 425,000 of that are these encumbrances, and I don't think the council really can say yay or nay on these because these are actually bills that were already services or items received. We just need to pay them because they didn't get paid before the end of the year. So this money is already pretty well spent. So I will support begrudgingly paying these bills. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion then?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Modrick. Second. Second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 50, approve resolution 2018-008, a resolution declaring certain real property located along Promise Road surplus and appointing freeholders to appraise the property prior to sale. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I will make the motion to approve this resolution, if I may retain the floor.
Yes, you may. Second by Modrick, was it? Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I am in favor of supporting going ahead and declaring this property a surplus and having it appraised. However, I've already heard rumors that there are potential buyers that are ready to jump on this property, and I'm not sure that the city should necessarily be turning around and selling it. And I would be really interested to hear how the city proposes to sell it, because we have a lot of other projects that are, up and coming in our community. There's the Transformation Center that's still trying to come to the city, and there's yays and nays about the current location. So I don't know if I'm necessarily ready to sign up for selling this property at this time until we kind of see a game plan of all the city-owned property and the proposed locations for a lot of the different projects that the special interest groups are coming before us. But I will support going ahead and declaring it surplus, and I will go ahead and support getting it appraised at this time. But I'm letting the council know I'm hearing rumors already, and I don't like where the rumors are going. So thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I want to echo what Councilwoman Scott said. I'm supportive of this, but this isn't promised to anybody, and so the fact is, and I already expressed this to the mayor, but this Promise Road is going to be developed soon, so it's a valuable piece of property, and it's going to become more valuable. And so this is the taxpayer, this is the citizens' land that we're surplusing, and so eventually, when we place it for sale, we should place it at a time when the market is hot there so we get the most out of it. Or if there's a plan to use it for some other purpose, that would be fine as well. But I just wanted to kind of echo that. My desire, which I've already shared once again, is that the city get the most out of this property that we can, because this will be returned to the citizens to use for other items. In particular, this was part of the fire department's building out there, and so this was surplus land that they had, so perhaps looking at how we can better utilize storage and perhaps other projects within the city itself. So I just want to put that out there, that let's get the most out of this that we can. Perhaps we list it and let a competitive sale happen and sell it to the highest bidder that's responsible, all of that, something. But for now, all we're doing is adding it as surplus, and that lets us do what we want to do in the future with it. So I'll yield. Thank you.
Back to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. And Alderman Solomon reminded me of something too, because our fire chief did let us know in agenda review that this property was used with CIP fire department money. And so right now, generally our practice, I'm not going to say it's a policy, but our practice is that whatever money was used to purchase property in the first place, if it becomes surplus and we sell it, that money goes back to try to use it really in the same vein in which the original money was used. So with our citizens out there looking at money and watching our tax dollars, this did not come out of the general fund. So this money was not there for operating cost for the police department and the fire department and the Parks and Rec and all of our general fund departments, such as the attorney's office and the finance office. This came out of CIP dollars, which for the fire department. And so the city council has it within us that we can reallocate it, but I think that would be a bigger discussion. So just want everybody to be aware of that too, that just because we can go off and sell property doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help our general fund balance line there. This money is going to go back into CIP to start with. Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve item 50. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And to reassure the council, this is just surplusing the property, and there are different options we can legally use to sell it, but in the end, it'll take 2/3 of you to agree to sell it. Okay, next item 51, approve fiscal year 2017 Community Development Block Grant Contract with Youth and Family Services. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the last item that I pulled off the consent calendar. I merely pulled this off because I will not be supporting this. This is one of those CBG items that when the Youth and Family Services Center originally applied for the DGB funds, the Community Block Grant funds, this was supposed to be used to repair a roof. I am all for the Youth and Family Services, and I am all in favor of our Community Block Grant program. It's federal money. I have a huge concern that if we don't actually track and utilize the funds in which a committee determines in which it's going to use, I think that we're going to get in trouble. I think that we need to really make sure that when these organizations come forward and they say they want these funds for a specific project, they can't willy-nilly turn around, because if you read this item, this was originally to repair a roof. Now they're going to remodel a bathroom, buy a double-deckered convection oven, and they're also going to move an HVAC cooling system. None of those three things, in my mind, are a roof repair, which is what was originally approved for this money from the Community Block Grant. So I will not be supporting it. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Joel Landine.
Okay.
Do you think that we're skating on thin ice by transferring this money? Is that something that you could enlighten us on? I mean, it's not going to the project that it was applied for.
You know, I haven't really looked at it, so I can't give you a really informed opinion tonight, but I think, you know, this has been through, they requested it, I think the council authorized the change, and it's probably more of a, I guess, a philosophical issue than a legal one, as far as they came in and applied for a certain project and were awarded on that, and but ultimately you decide what projects get the funding, and so if you change that, I think you can change it, but I could see where it would be subject to criticism that that was not the project that was recommended for approval. But again, I think it's probably more of a philosophical than a legal problem.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. In using my recall, we did have quite a bit of discussion on this exact item, talking about if it moved over at the time that they came forward and talked about the roof not needing it, but this is also part of keeping YFS in function when you've got HVAC and the other things that are necessary. And we did also have it confirmed that it qualified. That was a key question and answer that we had. I think it was before the end of the year we might have had that. And the fact that it qualified also stated at that time that it was not going to affect the CDBG and the granting of those funds. And I know Barb's not here. I don't know if there's anybody in here tonight, but I would hope that my fellow council will remember that conversation. It was well dialogued, and we came to the conclusion that this would be a great place to continue the CDBG. We shouldn't. We need to use it. These are funds that were awarded, and we need to use those funds. So I have no problem at all supporting this and letting the finality come so that we can move forward with our granting and also allow YFS to get their job done. Thank you.
So we don't have a motion on this, do we? Okay, Chad Lewis.
Make a motion to approve and retain the floor real quick.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, second by John Roberts.
Amanda, I imagine. Anyway, I actually sit as a liaison to this committee, and I do believe I was on this discussion, and the committee actually did vet this project going forward and reallocation of the money. I'm not sure the exact wording of how it went down, but it was basically I don't think they needed the money for the roof at the time, and they needed the kitchen more, and so I think that's how it ended up being changed over to this project, and so I don't think there's anything other than just this is more higher priority for them right now, so anyway, thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to approve item 51. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now to item 55. Acknowledge, ratify agreement for assignment of proceeds of real estate sales by Red Rock Development Company, LLC, to the City of Rapid City. Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a motion to acknowledge and to hold the floor.
Okay, second by Modrick. Go ahead.
Mr. Whalen, I think he's left the room. I was just going to say thank you for bringing that forward, and thanks to staff for getting everything attached, and Mr. Sullivan for recycling the item, basically, so everybody knows there was nothing nefarious going on. It just was an oversight once again, and I think that everything's fine. Just was one of those situations where sometimes things just don't get attached. Nothing beyond that, so thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is to acknowledge. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 56. Approve and authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a municipal advisor agreement with Doherty and Company in regard to the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center Barnett Arena project.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Modrick and a second by Drew. And John Roberts, you want the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate, I had a few phone calls on this earlier today. And reading through it again, one of the things that I noticed is, you know, the way that I guess I'm a little confused. Maybe I should ask Pauline Sumption some questions on this.
Okay, go
ahead. If you don't mind. Pauline, when you read through this company, what they're going to do for us is they're going to basically write the resolutions for the bonding authority in the future, correct?
No, that is bond counsel, actually. They're helping us to write the resolution, whatever will end up being passed, either the 25 million or the 110 million, one or the other. But their role is to help find the best financing options available for us at the time that we're looking to sell the revenue bonds or whatever we determine.
So under this contract, okay, if we waited until after we voted on the Civic Center resolution, wouldn't they be looking at just one instead of two? Wouldn't it be cheaper to do it that way rather than doing it beforehand and having them do it for both the 25 million and the 110 million?
They aren't doing it for both. Right now, it's just the preliminary stuff that can work for both, either one. Whether it's the $25 million project or it's a $110 million project, there's still preliminary things that we can put in place. Right now, we're looking at RFPs for underwriters that would actually go out and sell the bonds once whichever one is passed and referred and ends up being the final one that we end up going with. So they're doing stuff now that will help us in either scenario. So the money and the investment of time is not going to be wasted because we have to do one or the other.
I agree with that, but to me it just seems like we should be doing this after the vote when we know which one it is. It would be, you know, it's not going to really delay anything. We're only 3 weeks out from the council vote on it, whether it's going to be the 25 million or the 110 million. So
one of the things, though, that they are doing, and they have to be under contract as a municipal advisor to do so, is to actually run numbers for us so we can do projections based on what the estimated project costs are going to be. If we don't, we want to have the best information possible to get out to the public and to get to you guys as well, so you guys can make an informed decision on the 26th of February.
okay. So maybe my question is wrong. Maybe we should have done this 6 months ago so we had that. But I still think 3 weeks before. It just worries me the way that this is written. I'm worried that a resolution is going to come forward at the same time. What is that resolution going to entail? Is that going to give the city bonding authority at the time that we make the decision on whether it's 110 million or 25 million?
So what will happen on the meeting on the February 26th is the council will decide which way they want to go. Do we want to do the 25 million? Do we want to do the 110 million? After that decision is made, you will be presented with two different resolutions. One would be for the 25 million option, one for the $110 million option. So then you guys will make your decision. I'm assuming, and I know you're not supposed to assume, but I would assume that if the council chose to do the lesser $25 million remodel of the Barnett, that it would not get referred. However, either way, we have to wait the 20 days after publication before we could do anything with it anyway, because our resolutions, no matter what they say or when they're passed, are not effective until 20 days after publication. So there's still the 20 days plus the time between the meeting and the time that...
So there's enough time to refer it.
They still get their 20 days to refer it, no matter which one it is.
And that's the questions that came out. I mean, is this a bait and switch from the city? Are we trying to get a resolution through so, you know?
No,
so.
the resolutions will be on the agenda, either option A or option B, and then you guys get to choose that night, make the motion to support whichever one that you guys want to move forward with. We wait the 20 days after publication, and if it's referred, it goes to the public in June. If it's not referred, then 20 days later, we can start.
Well, thank you. One more question while I have you. The 25,000 that's added on to this, that is from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in 2014, almost 4 years ago. Why was that not paid between then and now?
The intent was always to pay that fee out of the bond proceeds, and so Doherty and Company chose not to invoice us, where we would actually have to take cash out of the vision fund to pay that. It was just a decision made administratively to wait until something was done with the project, and hopefully bonds were issued. And again, in either case, we're going to have to issue something, so they wanted it to come from the bond proceeds instead of the vision fund.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Joel Andine for some quick legal advice.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just point out that in the previous effort, this was similar. There was a contract entered into in July of 2014 with Financial Services with Doherty and Company. That would be the contract that the $25,000 is owed on. And then the actual resolution with the bonding authority came forward in December, and that's what was referred. So structurally, it's the same. However, as Alderman Roberts pointed out, maybe we should have been having this conversation 6 months ago. But I think it is important for people in the audience and the people concerned about this to note that we can't, without a financial advisor, we can't really get the information together to put together the resolutions for you to vote on for the bonding authority for either one. So we need to have them on board prior to having those resolutions come forward. And I would say that as far as selection of this advisor, because they had already done the work on the original one, and we were able to negotiate a lower fee that wasn't frankly reflective of the fact there's now the 25 million and the 100 and approximately 30 million, that for that reason it made financial sense. And I'd just point out, I don't know how many of you know this, but Ray Woodson from Doherty is in the audience. He was actually the city attorney when the original Civic Center was bonded and built. So he has a level of history and knowledge on this project that frankly we couldn't probably find with any other financial advisor. So just some food for thought as you consider this contract. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that clarification, Joel, because what I'm sensing from the audience tonight is that there is picking up that we're putting the cart before the horse. So would you clarify that again, that we are not putting the cart before the horse?
When we put the resolutions for you for the bonding, that are what, if somebody wants to refer it, that's what would get referred, just like in the previous effort. We need the financial information, and I'd have to go back. I printed off the resolution before, but it talks about rates and different things and numbers and how we're going to structure the bonds. That's all information that's crucial for you to decide when you approve whatever option you approve, and that's what's going to go in the resolution. We need their expertise in order to put those together and come up with that information. So there's something to get in front of you to approve that can ultimately be referred if that's what people choose to do.
for me, that's part of the data, that it's very important for me to understand which motion that we're going to be voting on and which motion we're going to approve of those two motions. But just to clarify, one other comment that was made from the audience was that we're short $25 million in the street fixes and et cetera. I just want to make sure that everybody understands, and maybe Pauline can clarify this for us, make sure everybody understands that that is a separate portion of the second penny that that we have. So the CIP is different from the vision that we're talking about here.
What's your point of order?
It's your call, Mayor. It's your
Okay, I'll agree. Stick to the topic here.
I just want to make sure that the audience understands that the money that we're using or going to be voting on the 26th is coming from the Vision Fund and is not being affected by the street fixes.
Point made.
Thank you. Some other comments that were made tonight that seemed a little bit confusing, so I just want to make sure that the public understands that we need that information prior to the vote that we're going to be holding on the 26th. So we want to make sure that we're getting the accurate information and not having to deal with the nefarious items that are coming out from the public. So just want to make sure that everybody understands what we're voting on and why we're voting on it that way, with those two items coming up on the 26th. And I'm holding back on other comments because of they could get into other areas. So just to clarify that that information is what we need to have to vote on the 26th. And I'll leave the rest to other folks to deal with.
Okay, Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we have the advisor here from Doherty and Company. Woody, I just wanted to ask if there was anything maybe that he would like to share with us. It's great to take an opportunity to have you introduce yourself to the public, if you would, and maybe you can also tell us a little more from our discussion.
Well, I think one other thing that I'd say is that we'll assist the city in is making sure that bond counsel in preparing the resolution provides for flexibility so that as markets might change between now and when the bonds are issued, that we have the maximum flexibility built into the resolution in both resolutions that you adopt, or whichever one you adopt. So that's part of also what we'll provide for.
And example of the market today, this is a good time for us to be moving forward on this is now. The February 26th date is an important date for the council. And
yeah, I mean, if you're going to have an election and a referral and have it at the June primary, it has to be basically done on the 26th. And so we're trying to get everything in place. And we,
very good.
We'll work with bond counsel on making sure that it's there, and that whatever role that, as we get underwriters involved and have the discussions as to, if we do some COPs, some sales tax bonds, and a mix of those, that we have the ability to put those in place that is most effective with the market.
And I want to appreciate the time that you spent even back in 2014 and back in the 1970s as well, because we're lucky to have still your historic values to bring forward. So we're getting a step ahead by having that knowledge, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your information. Thank you, Mayor.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I may, I'd like to ask the city attorney a couple of questions, at least one.
Please do.
Joel, according to state law, bonding authority, assuming in these resolutions, the two that we're talking about, the 25 million or the larger one, there's going to be bonding authority granted in those. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, ultimately that will be the question, and that will be the resolution you approve.
So what I want to make sure is that you know, as you know, state law protects a city's ability with bonding authority. So I want to make sure that the referral, if it's going to be referred, whichever one, either resolution is adopted by the council, I want to make sure that the people's ability to refer the item isn't encumbered or shortened by anything that we would do in the bonding authority of those resolutions.
You know, the best response I can give to that is this is exactly the way it happened the last time and it was referred.
Okay, very good. That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
I'm sorry, I forgot to jump out of the queue. I was going to ask the same question, so thank you.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah, there's a motion already to approve, but thanks for that anyway.
Well, thank you. Then I'll call the question.
Let's move along.
Okay, any objection to calling the question? Okay. How do we vote? Well, you're out of time anyway. So, all right. The motion on the floor is to approve item 56. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And on item 56, I know this is an emotional issue. It's kind of an issue where people's ears perk up, and I want to thank John Roberts for his good questions on this, and Pauline Sumption for the good answers, and for the citizens from paying attention to this issue, and I think that's important. There are protections in place to protect the citizens' right to refer things, things such as the 20-day publication period and that sort of thing. There's no way, if we intended to, we could sneak this by the citizens, and there is no effort or intent to do any such thing. It's being very much publicized in the open, and so that's why we're here. It's a public meeting, and this all moves forward, so thank you. And the last of the consent items, item 65, acknowledge developer deferred projects, Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, motion to acknowledge.
Second.
Okay, second by Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind the council, and if they haven't had a chance to take a look at the attachments, is that the staff has provided a fairly lengthy list, but it doesn't include all the projects. These are just immediate recall from the department coming up with developer deferred infrastructure improvements, which ultimately means that anything that we waive as a city council eventually, most cases, wind up in front of the CIP committee as another project that needs to be undertaken. So there's a good list to take a look at for examples for the city council members to review, and ultimately these are items that were kicked, as we used to use the metaphor of kicking the can down the road. Well, these items are going to be coming in front of us from other people that have kicked the can down the road. So very, very long list, and this is only a partial list. So stay tuned. We'll be having more discussion on this in the CIP meetings. So I just wanted to make sure that the council understood that because of the waivers that we're doing, it ultimately winds up in front of the CIP committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is to acknowledge 65. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us through consent. We won't need a public comment time on the non-consent items 69 through 77 because I mistakenly let Jackie Gary talk early. So we'll go right on to ordinances, starting with item number 69. Second reading, ordinance 6221, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2018. Committee recommendations to approve. Second. Okay, motion to approve by Solomon and a second by Lewis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 70, first reading, ordinance 6217, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code a request by KTM Design Solutions for DTH LLC for a rezoning from low-density residential district to medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located southwest of the intersection of DeGeese Drive and Big Sky Drive. Motion to approve by Drew, second by Modrick. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 71, first reading, ordinance 6218, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Margaret Gross Hyatt for a rezoning from light industrial district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located southeast corner of the intersection of Dias and East Mall Drive.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Modrick and second by Drury. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 72, first reading ordinance 6219, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Stone Ridge LLC for a rezoning from low-density residential district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located northwest of the intersection of Parkview Drive and 5th Street. The committee recommendations to approve in conjunction with Plan Development 17 PD 057.
Move to approve.
Move to approve in conjunction with the Plan Development by Solomon and a second by Lewis. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 73, first reading ordinance 6222, an ordinance amending section 1706 of the Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Designs Solutions for ZCO Incorporated for a rezoning from General Ag District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located at the intersection of Marlin Drive and Burnelli Drive. Motion to approve by Drew and a second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pardon?
It was Brewery.
It was a tie.
Yeah, it sounds like that.
Item 74. First reading, ordinance 6220, an ordinance amendment to clarify uses in residential districts by amending Title 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Committee recommendation was to approve. Motion approved by Drury and a second by Armstrong. Say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
I'm lowering my voice.
Item 75, first reading ordinance 6224, an ordinance repealing Chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to wards and precincts and adopting a new revised Chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Modrick and a second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now for our one Public Works Committee item, we'll go to the Public Works Chair, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 76, appeal of denied exception request from KTM Design Solutions on behalf of Deanham to waive the requirement to construct sewer main along Murfield Drive. The only exception denied by the staff out of 4 total exceptions submitted for the project. Recommendation to send to council without recommendation.
Okay, we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make the motion on this. We had sent to council without recommendation because we had just received the agreement. But the recommendation, now that we've had a few days, is to uphold, my motion is to approve the exception to not construct public sewer main in adjacent Murfield contingent upon the developer entering into an attached covenant agreement with the city, which is also attached in our agenda.
Okay, we have a second to that motion by Nordstrom. Okay, we have a motion and a second on item 76. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to council items and liaison reports. Item 77, acknowledge Human Relations Commission semi-annual update. Lisa Modrick.
Thank you.
Your mic's not on.
Thank you. I motion to acknowledge and ask to retain the floor.
Okay, and a second by Jason Solomon. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I just want to thank Jackie Gary for bringing this again forward to us in a report, and there's a tremendous amount of work that's done. And Jackie, I don't know if you'd like to come up and just share any of the highlights we've got to read here, but it's important and it's valuable, and you've got some bullet points here. Can you just give me or give us a little bit on those bullet points, because they're very valuable to our community, as is this committee.
Okay, the commission, during the time period of August 2017 to December 17, had a pending employment complaint, and ultimately, based on the city attorney's office recommendation, we dismissed it because it didn't meet criteria at that point. The city attorney office fielded 12 phone calls during that same time period, and of those, 4 resulted in a meeting with attorney staff, and then the remaining calls had been referred to the state or the organizations who were better suited to help in those situations. We had several resignations on the commission and new appointments made during that time frame. Seth Malott and one more, and Shad Storm were appointed as new members to the commission. We had some training and in-service during that same time period on sexual harassment from City Attorney Rogers. And our public service announcement still continues to run on all channels in Rapid City.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate it if you could pass it on to the commission. I had the opportunity to liaison on that commission last year, and the work that's being done there, and just to have that committee is valuable, because for those that don't know in our community that there is a place to go and a phone number to call, that is there for them on any human relations process that they think that maybe they need to have looked at by the city or by the committee. And it's a good thing to have, and every committee should, or community should. And so I appreciate it. I enjoyed serving with you, and thank you for giving me the highlights as well as the rest of the city.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Yes. Motion to acknowledge. Yes. Okay, the motion to acknowledge, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next items 78 and 79 are consent public hearing items. Anyone want to take any of those items off and talk about them separately? Okay, motion by Scott to approve 78 and 79, a second by Laurenti. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now we need a motion to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, subsection 3, to consult with legal counsel regarding pending litigation. May I have a motion? Motion by Lewis and a second by Armstrong. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session. We have a motion to come out of executive session, please. Okay, a motion by Solomon, second by Roberts to come out of executive session. All in favor say aye. Aye. Mr. Landine, any action following executive session?
No.
Okay, then item 80, the bill list. Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at a whopping $13,249,104.78.
Motion to approve, Laurenti, second, Armstrong. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Nordstrom and second by Armstrong. Any objection? We're adjourned. Thank you.